What's up, my dudes? Just got the A-10C 2 installed and wanted to try out the laser guided rockets and the HMCS. And so that's what this video is all about. And it's quite fun. I'm enjoying it so far. But first, before we get into the actual mission that I set up, there are some controls that are a little bit wonky. The first is the vertical slew axis is inverted. Last time I flew the original A-10C, it was like this as well, and I don't know why. It shouldn't be that way. The other thing was the coolie hat. I think, if I remember right, the forward or down was up, and up was not even mapped, and I don't know why that would be either. There were also some issues with my rudder pedals having roll and pitch commands and gun and weapon release commands mapped to them, so I had to remove those, but it wasn't as bad as normal. But those are just some things to be aware of. If you're finding it a little bit weird getting your HUD to be set as sensor of interest, or you're like getting weird behavior on your MFCDs, swapping and things like that, when you're using the correct controls, go check that because they may be mapped incorrectly. The slew control, it's going to be pretty obvious if that's wrong, but I'm a little bit rusty in the A10, so it took me a minute to realize that the coolie hat was messed up as well. So I still had some issues finding the targets, which is always going to be an issue, but part of that was because I was just in a big rush to get into the into the mission to try these out. So I'm trying to find the more dangerous things. I'm kind of scoping out the different targets, and of course I built this mission so I know what's down there, and that always makes things a little bit too easy. And then when you have no idea what to expect, it seems to make it too hard, but more realistic, I guess. So I'm basically looking around at everything, and there I found a Shilka. So I'm going to try to take him out first. And this is pretty standard stuff. I was trying to remember which was the high explosive and which was the penetrator warhead. It took me a minute to kind of remember which one that was. But also, when I started clicking buttons here for a few minutes, I started getting really crazy frame drops, and that was a little bit frustrating and disconcerting. But they seemed to go away. I don't know what it was about. But if you've watched any of my DCS videos, you'll know that I do consider my rig to be, it's a little dated, but yeah, it plays almost everything else I play on absolute maximum settings without any problems whatsoever, and DCS not so much. So when I first got this machine, I was playing DCS on maximum settings in 1080p, so it wasn't like I was playing 4K. But I had everything maxed out on 1080p, and it played really well and really smoothly, but it just doesn't anymore. It's a couple, let's see, yeah, I think it's 2 years old. So it's a 1080 Ti GPU and 32 gigabytes of RAM. And then the CPU, I can't remember exactly, but it's I believe it's an i7 6-core. And it's, I don't know that it's just amazingly fast, but it's fairly decent. And then solid state drive with a large magnetic drive as well. What am I missing? I think that's the most of the really necessary stuff. So anyway, it in my opinion, it does meet or exceed the recommended settings for DCS. Non-VR, but it doesn't play as if it meets or exceeds the recommended settings, so I don't know if they need to adjust their recommended settings or what. Anyway, here I was kind of losing track of where my sensor point of interest was, and then I was also noticing that telephone, or that power pole was kind of in the way. I don't know that would cause an issue, but There are collisions with those poles, not with the wires, but with the poles. So I wanted to get to where I wasn't lined up with that pole, and then I realized that my SPI was well below me and I was getting really close, so I pulled away and decided to try to line up again. But back to the performance issue with DCS, and I'm not necessarily faulting DCS. I think it's partly DCS's fault, but it's also it doesn't seem like it's very optimized. It seems like it's very, very power hungry compared to other games. But at the same token, it's a very large game and there's a lot going on, and it's trying to keep track of a lot of different data. So I wouldn't expect it to run as well on my machine as some of the other games that I play. But it gets a little frustrating whenever I dial back the settings and then it plays fine. Then I have really crazy frame drops, and then it plays fine, and then really crazy frame drops. And most of the missions I build are just for testing things or showing a specific a very specific thing, so they're relatively small missions without a lot going on. So anyway, it's a little disconcerting. I wish that it would get a little bit more optimized, and I can't afford to or I choose not to afford to upgrade my PC every year. So I'm trying to buy a PC every 5 years, and if DCS is gonna get more and more hungry every few months, it's just not really going to be that sustainable. But hopefully it won't be that way. I don't think it is yet. Again, this computer's probably about 2 years old, and it plays okay for me. But that's enough of that. I'm showing this pretty much this whole mission from the time I found the targets till I decided to quit. And so it's a little bit of a long mission, and there's some dead time in here, but if you've played DCS, you get it. You know that there's some flying around and setting things up before you're ready to roll in. But here we're lined up on this Shilka, and I'm just trying to make sure that I'm within range. I can't remember the max range on these. It seems like it's a little bit further than regular rockets, but there we go with our first rocket. That's my first laser guided rocket that I fired in this game. And just pull off a little bit and try to make sure that I don't mask the laser. And I'm not sure why it looked like it stopped lasing there. I've got the latch on, but it stopped for a second and then it just started back up on its own. The hit was probably not, it was not dead center. Not probably, it just wasn't dead center, but it looks like we got him smoking, and usually in DCS that means that his days are numbered. And so I switch back to my wide field of view, and I want to try to find one of those trucks that has AAA in the back. There's some BMPs down there and some BRDMs, and there our Shilka's dead. But that looks like that's a truck with a Zeus in the back, so we're going to try to get that guy. He should be pretty easy to kill with these rockets. And what I really like about these rockets is, I can very rarely get like a maximum range shot with a Maverick. Usually my Mavericks are getting enough contrast to get, I call it a lock. I don't know that it's really a lock, but it may be. But anyway, I'm usually not getting locks outside of like 6 miles, and maybe that's my fault because I'm not getting the SPI in the right spot, or the sensor looking in the right spot or something. I don't know, but these have almost as much range, if not the same amount of range as my usual Maverick shot, and I usually don't need a Maverick warhead to kill these kinds of targets. And since I can really only carry 4 Mavericks, 6 if I'm kind of being unrealistic, then that really limits me for kind of standoff ground attack weapons. And so for these kinds of targets, Shilkas, Zeus's, BRDMs, BMPs, things like that, it's kind of nice to have them. And I've got 21 on 4 different stations, 21 of these rockets on 4 different stations. So what I could do is just have 21 on one station, 21 on another, and then have some other stations with bigger munitions in case I needed to, take out some tanks or something like that. So these rockets really expand the usefulness of the A-10, and it makes it so that for me, I hang as much ordnance off of the plane as I can. Me and Warlock are very regularly taking off at 105% max takeoff weight, which is also unrealistic, but we do it anyway. And and then even so, even though we've got all this high explosive on our wings, we have to get a little bit choosy about our targets. And I think that these rockets really expand the capability and make it so you can loiter a little bit longer, take out a few more targets, not be quite so picky. If you find as long as there's not any long-range SAMs in the area, you can get a target set up, roll in on it, fire it like that, and then just as long as you don't mask it, or if you have a buddy lasing it, you'll be able to take out a number of targets pretty quickly. So I'm actually really, really happy with these. I remember when I was listening to a podcast several years ago, I used to have a really long commute to work, and so I listened to lots of podcasts, and I heard them announce that the Air Force had put these into service with the A-10, and I thought, oh man, that would be really cool if we could get that in DCS, but I doubt we ever will. And so whenever they announced the A-10C2, I was kind of like, that's just a VR thing. They're just upgrading the textures and stuff. So I'm not going to get it because, again, if you guys have listened to my other DCS videos, you'll know that I've been a little bit, not disgruntled, but just sort of disappointed with some of the long development cycles after something's hit early access, and I was really, really disappointed with the Normandy map and then the release of the channel map. I'm starting to get over that, but I'm still pretty frustrated by it. So I was just sort of like, I felt for a while like Eagle Dynamics was just trying to come up with ways to get more money without actually producing a whole lot of extra content. But I do want to say, before people yell too loudly at their screens, I think I was mostly wrong. I'm still upset about the Normandy map. I'm still not entirely happy with long development cycles after things hit early access, but this A-10C2, I think they handled it really well. They put enough new features into it to make it worth the money, and especially the whole $9.99 upgrade if you already had A-10. I can't ask for anything more. I think that's fair. They deserve to make some money off of their hard work, and I don't mind paying a $10 upgrade fee to get, even if it's just the laser guided rockets and the helmet mounted queuing system. It's well worth it. So, and I would say if you don't own the A-10, the $80, I know it's a lot of money, but the $80 for the complete module, I honestly would say it's worth it too, because the A-10 is my favorite module. It's in depth, but it seems to make sense once you kind of understand the idea of SPI and SOI and how to switch between the sensors and things like that. You don't necessarily need to know anything more than that, and you can have a really good time in the A-10, and it flows smoothly, and switching between sensors seems to flow smoothly to me. Maybe it's because I learned this module first, or maybe it's because it really makes more sense than the F-18 and the F-16 do, which are also really great modules. But then this one also, that's all you need to know to employ weapons effectively. But if you want to, then you can get into the CDU and the UFC and start really understanding how to get on target with different pieces of information and stuff like that. And I haven't even dove in that much on those. I've kind of messed with the CDU a little bit, but there's a lot to go with here. So, not to be an Eagle Dynamics advertisement, but I've been extremely happy with the A-10, and I would recommend it. So you can see I'm just kind of rolling in on targets, firing. The only kind of bummer about these is, it's a one fire once and let that target, that rocket hit the target, and then you got to line back up and fire again, but it doesn't take that long, and it doesn't take that long once you're in that target area to find new targets to hit, so if there are new targets to hit. But you can see it's going rather smoothly. This guy's moving. There is a way to track and fire on moving targets, but I'm not that good yet, so I just wait for him to stop. The AI is not very bright, so get locked on to this guy, and then we'll fire on him. But that's all this, you know, basically this mission is just all about taking them out one at a time in tactical order or order of preference, you know, whatever you decide. So I tried to do a little tactical order, taking out the meanest ones first, but that may be open for debate as well. So also, really cool thing about this is you don't even have to really be lined up. I try to point towards the target as much as possible, turn the laser on, fire it, roll out gently to the left, and try to gain a little bit of altitude. So just for grins, I switched to the high explosive here. I know there's some infantry around there, and I was gonna see, I kind of thought like, you know, trucks are soft skinned, so I kind of thought the high explosive would do a little bit more to this truck, but as you see, it wasn't quite that great. So I don't know that I'll carry high explosives on the plane that much. If I really need to, I can, you know, I can take out all the other dangerous targets and then gun up the infantry or something like that, drop a bomb on them, whatever. You've got more options with those guys, but you know, it was worth a try. So basically just trying to get some distance and line back out on the targets. I started rolling in closer to the targets and just having less distance, but less distance between when I rolled out and when I fired. But you know, with these laser guided rockets, it was actually pretty easy to do that. Also, firing through the clouds I don't think that that's an issue with these. It's just an issue with your visibility. But once you're on the target, I don't think it matters that much. This isn't heavy cloud cover, but so there, yeah, you can see I did some damage, but it wasn't quite as cool as what I had hoped that it would be. So one thing that I didn't think of until just now is the fact that I'm going to have to make textures for the A-10C too now. I have a bunch of textures for the old A-10. I won't remake all of them for sure, but I'm going to have to make new textures. With any luck, I'll be able to take layers from my old files and just put them on the template for the new files. I suspect that the template's going to be bigger for the new files though, but we will see. So here, I decided I was kind of bored with the lasers, and I decided to try my gunfighting skills, and I am definitely rusty with the gunfighting. I also didn't realize there were as many guys down there that could still shoot. Now this smoke was a little weird. That didn't seem quite right. It seemed like the particle effects were a little rough. So we had quite a bit firing at us here, and luckily they're kind of not that great, but That guy chased me all the way through. Then there's fire coming from that way. And then I think that's a soldier down there, I believe. But it's always fun to do a gun run. Not necessarily the smartest, especially when you're as bad at it as I am. So I just always have trouble getting dialed in and keeping it there. I'm a little shaky on the controls. Maybe I need more dead zone in my axis or something. But I like it the way it flies mostly, but it's probably a little fidgety. So here we go again. We got shot at a bunch, but who cares, right? Let's try to shoot some stuff up, and we'll see exactly how bad I am here for sure. I see the guy. He's in range. My first burst was probably okay, it looks like, and then I just kind of got all over the place, and then smoke starts obscuring the target, and I was getting too close, and I barely did any damage to the guy. Maybe he's just a tough chap, I don't know. So this is why I fly virtually, not for real. And then, okay, so then I decided, like, what if I dumbfire these rockets? It's kind of stupid to dumbfire the rockets, but in a pinch, can I? I decided I was going to roll back in, make sure the laser's off, because I don't want it trying to track onto something I've already killed. And then I realized, whoa, I don't have the right rockets. They're all high explosive. I need the other ones. So switch back to those, back to the TAD, and then roll back in. And this is where things kind of go awry. First, because my rocket shooting skills are probably worse than my gun shooting skills, and part of that's because of the glare, and I'm from the other direction with the sun the way it was easier to see the targets. But I think I'm picking up the target, and then I veered off to the side, didn't hit him. Those were well short, and then those were well short. So and then there you go, nice master caution. We got us an engine on fire. Awesome. So I'm using some of that speed to get a little altitude. Don't panic like this. I didn't panic here, which is rare, but pull the fire handle, flip the switch, try to keep it under control. And what do you know, I think the fire went out. So I think it's time to fly home. And with that, I do thank everyone for watching. This system is really cool. Thanks for watching and listening to me babble on about my experience here, and happy flying, everyone. Take care.